You're very welcome to episode 52. And today I am joined by Ambrose Duggan, who is probably better known to a lot of the listeners as the Westmeath Ironman.
You are an Ironman!
Ambrose, you're very welcome onto the podcast.
Thanks, Mickey, and thanks very much for inviting me on today. Delighted to be here to chat to you.
I'm really happy that you've agreed to come on to the podcast. I've been sort of following you and your journey on Instagram now for quite a while, actually. I had the pleasure of meeting you in the flesh this time last year at the Tri-Tyrone 70.3 in Dungannon. And it was lovely to meet you. And a lot of people will have been following you on Instagram, and I have to say, I really do enjoy your content. There's a great honesty and humility with you, and a great sense of humor. But a lot of your stuff is very positive and uplifting, and I think that's what really appeals to me. Is that sort of the vibe that you're going with on Instagram?
Yeah, no, look, and thanks a million for just saying that because, look, that is the vibe I'm going for. I suppose, when I started the page, I suppose I originally started the page, God, about maybe 2.5 years ago, and it was just my family and friends were basically telling me, look, we're fed up listening to you about your own. I have a personal page I never really use much anymore. We're fed up listening to you on your personal page about Ironman. And it was my wife that suggested, why don't you set up your own page? And so I literally just set it up. I was at an Ironman event in Florida 2 years ago. I just set it up over there. And it's very different to what I originally had envisaged for the page. But I suppose I look at it from a bit of a kind of a perspective to add a bit of humor to it. It's like, you know yourself, sport can be very serious sometimes, but I also look at it from a very real side of the sport because we can all have a social media page where we only have the best, where we only show the best side of what, our racing, etc., our training. So I kind of showcase the raw version of whatever I'm going through, whether that is a DNF in the past or whether that is maybe a crash on the bike or something that has happened to me at a race. And I just try and keep it as real and relative towards me. And I use it really, suppose, as an accountability tool for myself to keep myself honest because I train myself ultimately. So I suppose I just want to keep it. It's a way of me holding a mirror to myself, so to speak.
It works really well, and I have to say that it's kind of sucked me in a wee bit too, because I would kind of use my Strava like that too. But I really like the way that you'll post like a wee summary of your weekly training, and you post that quite openly and honestly, and you use nice wee cool graphics and whatnot, and we can see, the amount of times you've done running, your weights, your swims, and that. And it's a real nice sort of record of what you're doing. So you really do use that for your own personal accountability.
Yeah, and I think like ultimately because like accountability with coaching is a massive thing, and obviously coach yourself is probably the hardest task because we can either go too hard on ourselves, go too soft on ourselves. But I suppose for myself, if I'm training for an Ironman event or any event that I'm training for, unless you know of yourself from competing in Ironman events, that if you're not getting the sessions in, you're going to have a very lonely day out there. And I've had events that I've gone to and I haven't been trained correctly, but at them years ago, and I would have DNF'd that, and I just use. Like every Sunday, I'll put my numbers up, and anyone that follows me on Strava will be able to go in and see, well, look, these are his numbers. You know what I mean? Like they are the real numbers. And whether if you're doing an Ironman in a few weeks' time and I'm going out and I'm cycling 50K a week, I'm only cutting myself basically, because I'm not going to hit the numbers. I'm not going to be able race ready, So I suppose it's just a way at the end of the week, no more than if you have a coach and your coach is checking in, your coach maybe has a tough conversation with you and says, look, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? Then I suppose it's kind of my way of at the end of the week was saying, well, look, Ambrose, you didn't do your cycles this week or you didn't do your long cycle and you post your numbers up. So I suppose it's something maybe unique to the page, and I suppose it's something that's very honest as well, because we can all post that when we do our big runs and our big bikes. But you know, it's just about being honest. Like my numbers that I'll post for this week, or sorry, for last week, obviously I'm in taper for Leeds, are a lot smaller, you know, but it's relative, and I give a bit of an explanation under it. So if someone's looking at it, they'll see, well, how did his week go? Well, this is how the week went, etc. So yeah, it's a positive way that I use social media.
Good stuff, and keep it up. It's really useful, and it's lovely to be able to see that, and it's a real good tip to share. And you're not shy about sharing tips, and as I say, you do try and promote that sort of lifestyle now, as the guy that you are now, as the Westmeath Ironman, I suppose that type of persona.
Hmm.
Um, but let's have a wee chat about how you were before and how you became Westmeath Ironman. um, so I mean, we have been chatting as I do with my
Hmm.
guests, and we've put together like a bit of a timeline and stuff here. So what about taking it right back before triathlon, Ambrose? Can you give us a sense of who Ambrose was before all this triathlon carry on took over?
Yeah, I suppose when I look back to, I suppose, and when I look back to when I was doing my leaving cert when I was finishing secondary school, I suppose exercise was not in my vocabulary then. The last thing that I wanted to do was exercise. It To me, I was 17 years old, a typical 17-year-old lad. All I wanted to do, I was smoking at the time. All I wanted to do was smoke and drink pints at the weekend, you know, and that's all I wanted to do. But I suppose I was kind of coming into my very early 20s, and I suppose the realization was kind of setting in on me, like that there was going to be lifestyle. Um, Choices that I was making, and they were going to have a real impact on the rest of my life. And I was involved in sport to a degree before that. So I suppose I was never into football. I was never into hurling or anything or rugby or anything like that. And I suppose I did martial arts for about 20 years. You know what I mean? And that's something I really enjoyed. But obviously there wasn't a cardio element to that, you know, and really enjoyed that. So I suppose maybe when I was about 23 or 24, I suppose I was very overweight, up around 20 stone, and I just started. There was started doing a little bit of running at home. Was always Had always a love for cycling from my father, God rest him, and from for swimming as well. But like that, could never front crawl properly. Could only do the breaststroke. Did my first Ironman with the breaststroke, and that was back in 2014. And cycling was always a love. I always had it growing up, but obviously I had no bicycle at the time, so. I suppose I just started doing a bit of running, and then there was a race up in Dublin. It was an Adidas 5 mile run series event a long time ago, and I went up and I did that, and I dragged myself around the place. I had a horrible race, but enjoyed it. Strangely enough, did it with some friends at the time, and I suppose from that, I suppose I just kind of got into a little bit of cycling. Bought myself an entry level bike, you know, and then I did a little bit of cycling, did a little bit of swimming in the pool, and then obviously I'm from Athlone here in Westmeath, so there used to be a great race on here. It's not here anymore. It was triathlon. It was ran within the centre of the town. So that was on one year, and I signed up for it. It was a sprint race. Nearly died in the event from start to finish. Don't know how I got through it. Don't know how I got the water. And it was a sprint race going down the river, which makes it even more embarrassing. But just enjoyed it. And I was out later on that evening, and I suppose I was socialising, and somebody said to me at the time, "Oh, would you ever just start talking about triathlons?" And there was a guy I knew, and he wasn't long back after he came back from I think it was Ironman Frankfurt or something like that. So of course I went up and I went into YouTube, put Ironman into YouTube, seen some promotional video, and I was like, "This looks amazing. This just looks like." I think it's the one with that has the script soundtrack on it. It's a really old video. I'm sure most people have seen it, but it was a really inspiring video. You know, kind of one that gives you a kind of the goosebumps on the back of your neck type job. So went off, signed up, looked at the logistics. So obviously said, well, what's an easy race to get to Leeds? Sorry, not Ironman Leeds, sorry, Ironman Wales. So signed up for it, and went over there and got my rear end handed to me, so to speak. I DNF'd over there. And it was 2014, it was the last mass start of Ironman at the time. So there was 3,000 of us went into the water at the same time. Crazy. Just thinking back on it,
Uh-huh.
I've only ever done one that mass start, and it's something I wouldn't recommend. And it's great that Ironman have moved away from that into because it's not safe. And I did it
Hmm.
with the breaststroke, and then got out on the bike. But was brought in on the sweeper vehicle on the bike. I was nowhere near. I had no level of fitness, which I shouldn't have had. But the good positive thing about that race, and I look at it from a positive way, is that there was a local cancer hospice here in Athlone, and I raised money for them. I raised a few thousand euros for them, so it was a positive. So of course I was over there at the time, and of course DNF'd, and of course got the great notion, well, I'll come back over next year. So went back over in 2015 and got my rear end handed to me even again over there because I DNF'd again. I was short. I was just short. I think it was 60 to 90 seconds. It was something short on the cutoff to the bike. So I suppose I had to kind of sit down then and had to have a real good think, you know what I mean? Because it was a bit of soul searching, and I remember I sat down with my fiance at the time, she's now my wife, and had a good chat with her. And I kind of realized, because yeah, it has to be these conversations because like endurance sport is not for everybody. And you have to know, like, I'm never going to be a pro golfer. I'm never going to be a pro footballer. So you have to kind of know some people, you have what boundaries you have, what your abilities are and what your abilities aren't. So I suppose at that point then, it was herself, she suggested to me, why don't you consider a 70.3? So I considered a 70.3, and the following year I went across to Mallorca and I had my first red carpet, so to speak. I collected my first red carpet over there, and that was my first win. And it was that was more of a psychological boost for me than anything else because I knew it was possible. And then I went on, I did Dublin that year as well, and then I went on later on and I went to Barcelona, and that was my first full finish in Barcelona. You know what I mean? So I suppose
Hmm.
I got massive confidence from that. But I suppose I've learned so much. Like I look back on the athlete that I was back then, and the naivety that I had towards the gravity of what an Ironman is. And some people contact you on social media, and they might put down the arm. They might say, "Oh, it's this, that, or like it's a massive event." Whether it's a softer Ironman. I know there's no Ironman that's softer, but compared to like if you're looking at an easier course now. Again, I don't want to understate the Ironman is not an easy event, but you compare the likes of Barcelona to Lanzarote. There's no comparison apart from the swim, and the run is comparatively similar enough, could be temperatures wise, but the bike is a whole different world. You're dealing with wind in Lanzarote, you're dealing with the temperatures, and it's just a totally different event. But that's kind of the long-winded answer. That's kind of what got me into the sport. And as I said, I haven't looked back. It's been massive to me in my life, in my for my mental health, and I suppose it's just an obsession of mine, and it's I suppose a healthy obsession. You could be in a pub, spending your money on a Saturday night, or you could be putting your money towards an upcoming race, and I suppose I pick my priorities like that.
A good answer indeed. Um, and I want to just kind of go back a wee touch. You mentioned the Ironman Wales, and so there was two consecutive DNFs there. So the Welsh Dragon bite you on the backside twice,
And kicked me home as well.
kick you home as well. Um, what was it about that experience, Ambrose, that made you want to go back? And I can kind of get it because there's unfinished business with the first time, but with the second DNF, there's something worth kind of unpacking around that because it's once bitten, twice shy. You get knocked down twice. It would be very, very easy and understandable for someone to say, well, screw this. This is bloody difficult. I've given this two cracks of the whip here and it's not working out. What was it that you think whenever you're looking back at that now? That did it just light that fire? I know. Obviously, you toned it back a bit and you went back to 70.3. But at that point, you went back to 70.3 with a view of conquering the 140.6. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. Like some people, like there is a bit of an obsession, I think, in sometimes in the long distance where, people can get caught up in times. Now, there is obviously it is always lovely to go to a race and have a PB, like that's always important. But to finish an Ironman for anybody, whether that's 16.59 hours over in Leeds next week or whatever, like that's the achievement. But I suppose I went over there the first year I trained myself. The second year I had a coach. Um Again, a bit of naivety. I was very close in the second year, but I suppose I loved the brand around it. Like I love the fact that you could go to an Ironman in a country and go to an Ironman all the way across the world, and you get the same brand. You get the same race experience. And to me, race experience is a massive thing. Because it's whether that's be your medal, your T-shirt, your finishing line. Like you can see in Ironman Lanzarote, they put a lot of money into it there. And like the finishing line experience is much better than the year that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
In 22, like it's an amazing event. But I suppose. I would be stubborn. And I suppose because I got so close, I kind of suppose there was a part of me that kind of knew. I think getting so close, even though I did miss the cutoff, kind of let me believe that I did have it in me.
Hmm.
I did have the ability in me, that it wasn't this, like, again, going off and being a pro golfer. Like, I know no matter, firstly, not a sport that appeals to me. No offense to anyone that's into golf that's listening to this, but it's not a sport that appeals to me. But I know that it's not, no matter how much time or effort, I haven't got the ability. But to be that close in Wales, and just, you're in spitting distance, so to speak, of getting out on the run course. um I suppose I just kind of thought to myself, this is something that I enjoy. I enjoy the process of it. And it's, I suppose, the process of the race is actually the training. And that's what I
Hmm.
enjoy. I enjoy the structure. I enjoy having a structured plan on a weekly basis that I follow, and that I can see the purpose of the plan, that it's going up and up and up, and that it's hitting certain points each week, all towards a certain goal. And and then to get the red carpet in Mallorca, get the medal, get the t-shirt, like that was a big win for me. And then have another one in Dublin when that was on later on the year. And then to go off and maybe take a race. Like, Wales was always on my bucket list, and I was coming back to it. But I suppose I was just probably getting the strength on the wider Ironman circuit before I came back to that particularly tougher race.
And just at the beginning of your triathlon journey, you had already sort of indicated that you had been unfit and quite unhealthy, and you were overweight. Were you still sort of toning down and slimming down and becoming that, the more leaner guy that we know now, or were you still carrying weight back then? Was there, were you, I suppose you weren't the polished product that you are now back then, but had you a ways to go even back then? Whenever you think back to where you were, maybe you just set that target of Ironman Wales too soon.
I don't think it was the weight as such, because I think the weight kind of was something that I started kind of coming across, say, in my mid-20s, mid to late 20s. And then
Mm-hmm.
by the time that I got to Wales, no, I don't think the weight, I think it was just, I think I just hadn't got the training done. I
Aye.
hadn't got the it was the training, like my knowledge of what is required to complete an Ironman now compared to 10 years ago. Like, I had the ignorance I had towards what was ahead of me was staggering. I just was of the view that it was just a longer version of a sprint race, without actually looking at how difficult Wales was. And I suppose the weight element, no, because I would have been kind of, I wouldn't have been that heavy going to Wales. But I suppose
Mm-hmm.
my fitness and my ability to, I suppose, to exercise, not exercise, I suppose to exert myself at that level is like the equivalent of, out of 10 would be, back then would be one, and now
Mm-hmm.
is maybe, is now the opposite, maybe 7 or 8. And
Aye.
like that comes with time. Like, yourself, like a lot of people go do an Ironman, they need a lot of training, and because you're going from zero to an Ironman. And that's why I maintain a kind of a base fitness throughout the year, even throughout the winter, so that I can turn over into an Ironman training plan quite easily. That it's not a case that I take this big pause. Like, when I finish my last Ironman event this year, I'll maybe take a week off, I'll relax, but then I'll go into my winter plan, because
Yeah.
it's more of a mental health thing for me. And I just find personally, for myself, like, because I like structure, I'm a person who likes structure, whether that be in my personal life or my work life. Structure is a big thing to me, and I like to know that I have a plan there, and it's whatever the target is, even during winter, whether that be just to improve maybe on this, that, or the other. But I do find, like, that I've started introducing strength and conditioning in the last year or two. I've gotten into that with my local CrossFit gym, and before that, I hated it. Like, I would rather cycle on the bike for 6 hours than go do a gym session. I hate them. But I have a great PT coach now, and she does me a plan every week, and I go in and I follow that, and I find it brilliant. But no, it's just kind of, I suppose, long-winded answer. Sorry, Mickey, no, but I suppose it's just the weight probably wouldn't been a thing. I suppose it was just my ability as an athlete back then. Like, you can be skinny and you can be light, But unless you have the aerobic capabilities, are you trained properly, you're going to have a disaster of a race if you try and take on something that's beyond your capabilities. And I don't think anything's beyond anybody's capabilities. I think, like, I'm a firm believer, and like in terms of my college work and all that sort of stuff, anything I would have done in third level, if you put the time in, it pays off for you. And if you put the time in on an Ironman, it'll pay off for you as well. Put the time and the training in. There's no point in me putting up my race numbers for Leeds at my big week 2 weeks ago, and I was off and I was cycling 3 hours. Because all I'm doing is codding myself. And if I was looking at that from an outside perspective, I'd be looking and saying, this fella hasn't a clue. And more importantly, why would I go talking to this man if I needed help with my own Ironman event?
In terms of just moving through the whole experience of expanding on your fitness, working on your cardio, and developing that endurance engine, can you think about lessons learned and tips or anything that you picked up throughout those early days whenever you were journeying through those 70.3s?
Yeah, I suppose we can all get caught up in you have to have the best bike, you have to have this, you have to have that. Like at the end of the day, like, and I know from being like I'm a qualified bike mechanic and technician, like it's just something that I've done personally myself. So, but like at the end of the day, a bike will make you a small bit faster, but a better engine will make you an awful lot faster. And
Mm-hmm.
if and no matter what, you can have the best bike in the world, 15 grand bike, it'll look lovely, but I've been overtaken by people on bikes that are cost a lot less than mine, but their engine is obviously better. But I suppose it's to find the right support people. Like there's a lot of people out there that will be in your corner to a certain degree, but I suppose it's to find the right coach. Like I've only ever had two coaches in my life, and obviously I'm coaching myself now, but I've learned a lot from these coaches. I've learned, the good things, and I've also learned, things that I've taken from them that I wouldn't do myself. And I suppose it's to find the right coach that's invested in you for the right reasons and not just for monetary value. Like there's an athlete recently that I was helping working with, and he was in Hamburg. And I got him to do a bit of a write up about the event, and he wrote afterwards. One of the things he wrote, and it'll stick with me for a long time, that he believes that I'm the type of coach that I would be happier if he did better than me, and I would be
Mm-hmm.
delighted. And that's how I work with people. That I would be able to view that if he had bet me at the race, no, he nearly did. There wasn't too much between us. I would have been delighted. That is not this ego with me. I want
Yeah.
people to do the best that they can, but it's about finding maybe the right triathlon club, the right supportive environment, because like a lot of clubs and a lot of organizations, whether it be running clubs, swimming, bike, they can all have a massive social media presence, and that's brilliant. But at the end of the day, it's how they treat their athletes when it comes down to the crunch is the true definition. We can all write inspiring things in our bios about inclusivity, but ultimately it's how your athletes are treated. And if you can find a good supportive environment that supports you well, then that's all that matters. And that will bring you on, because if you're like, I would have loved to have been in a tri club before I went and done Ironman Wales, because somebody might have had the good sense to talk me out of it at the time, to say, well, here, will you go do a bit gradual. But look, we can all watch it, like we can all watch a motivational video, and it can all, it can get us going about what the sport is about. But it's a tough sport. It's an enduring sport. A lot of people pass away, sadly, that are at the sport, and it's very sad. Like going back to obviously that incident in Cork, which is very sad. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we all do the sport for a hobby, and I do the sport. Like there was people and you were in Cork yourself as well, Mickey, that year, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
23,
yeah,
yeah.
2023. It's like, it's very sad to think that there was people that lined out that morning with us, that weren't, that didn't come home to their
Yeah,
families, because
yeah.
it's a hobby. At the end of the day, this hobby is to enhance our lives, and the last thing that we want to do is, sadly, to for anything like that to happen. And that's why I would recommend to anybody that you get yourself checked out, irrespective of how lean you look in the mirror, how well you look in that tri suit. You got to get the internal stuff checked out. There's no point going off spending 15 grand on a bike, and next minute, you've got issues with your heart. And an endurance environment, if you have any underlying issue, is the one place that you'll be found out if you have an underlying health condition. And we're seeing that, sadly, more commonplace these days.
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly echo that, Ambrose. It's something that I've done. I've actually never spoken about that, and I've never really publicly said anything about that. But I have had the full MOT,
Mm.
and I got that done before I went near Cork, and that was a checkup with the doctor. I actually went even further than the local GP and went and got a full blood count done, and got all my levels analysed, and went and got vitamin infusions and whatnot to bring certain levels up to where they were, and deficiencies that were identified through those investigations. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely. The last thing that anybody wants is for people to succumb to tragedy like that. And similarly, and recently there at the 70.3 in Wales, sadly,
In Swansea.
someone had passed away, and then again, then prior to that, Challenge Roth as well. So I mean,
And it is
you
very
know,
common. Like if you go into Google, there, people, it's the water, unfortunately, that people.
yeah,
If you have an issue, if you have an issue on the bike, you'll fall off the bike. If you have an issue run, you literally collapse. But if you have an issue ultimately in the swim, and whereas I do have to commend Ironman, like their swim safety is second to none. Like any event that I've been at, the amount of, especially like I've seen some races where every time you look up, you have a kayaker there. But at the end of the day, they can't cover everybody and they can't see everybody, and it's very sad, and it's very sad for anybody to go, and to go to an event that they've been training for, the families to be there, and God forbid something like that to happen. And it's just something you can't put your price on it. Like I've had full cardiac screenings, I've had full I'm asthmatic as well, so I've had full respiratory tests. But like that, I'd even go as far as, like, it's like some people say, oh, I go down to the doctor and I get my ECG done. Like an ECG is only going to show you up your stuff if you're having a cardiac event, but a simple cardiac consultant, I know there's nothing worse. I went to one recently and you have this anxiety. It's like, oh God, will he say something? But it's, at the end of the day, it's a sport. And I sat there in front of him and he was listening to my heart, and he says, oh, look, we'll just send you off for a scan. Everything is fine. Keep going, do your Ironman. Do you know what I mean? But there is that, because I have had a friend recently who's had to pull back from the sport just due to concerns himself, and it is, but it's proactive, and at the end of the day, men were the worst in the world for looking after ourselves. Like we'll go off and we'll buy the solid disc wheel for the back bike, spend 3 or 4 thousand euros on it. But a simple medical update every year. My mom, when I started this doing years ago, she made me go to the doctor to get checked out, because my parents always thought that this was a crazy sport. So it's and it is, look, it is a crazy sport. Like I'm going to
mm,
Leeds next week, and I'm looking at, like, it's an event I'm probably haven't been specifically training for, so I'm looking at a really long day. But I don't mind. I'm all for getting value out of Ironman, so I'm going to get as much value out of the course next week as possible.
absolutely. There'll be no getting you out of the merch tent either, like because you
No,
you'd be
no, and
a
in fairness,
fan for all
every day, every time I go to an event, I say I'm not going to buy anything at this, because I have three boxes in the shed, and it's literally just full of the Ironman bags. And it's
that.
like they're the best of quality of bags, but they're sitting out there. I might actually, maybe I'm thinking of actually giving away some of them for free on the Instagram page to people, because they're just sitting out there. They're no good to me, and it's a shame as well, because I have one bag that I got from Florida 2 years ago, and that's a brilliant bag, and I just use that at race events. But yeah, no, I guarantee you, I'll say I won't buy anything over in the merch tent, but I guarantee I'll leave with a bag.
You'll have a damn good snoop anyway, I would
Yeah,
say.
100%. Might have two of them.
Uh, the just getting back to your kind of experiences. So you've worked your way through your fitness. You've regrouped. You've gone through the 70.3s. You've chalked up quite a lot of 70.3s. You've completed 15 Ironman 70.3s. That's the official branded Ironman.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, you've done multiple 70.3s outside of that.
Yes.
And you've built your fitness, you've fine tuned your cycling, your running, your swimming. You're a different guy. Talk me through that first red carpet experience. Where were you, and how did you feel coming down after completing your first full Ironman?
I suppose I went to Barcelona, an absolute amazing area, Calella there. It's absolutely lovely, and it's for anyone that's listening to this. Um, it's one that I couldn't recommend enough for anybody that is considering. It's a perfect place. That, and Cascais in Portugal. They're perfect areas that you can go to. You can have your family with you. That it's a lovely place because some of these places that I've gone to have been, like there's places I've gone to over the years, and they're not designed towards the family, and it's at the end of the day. You have to have the correct support at home to do any of these events,
Yeah,
and without that, you're at nothing, because there's no point having a bunch of medals and being lonely at home because you're on your own because your wife or your husband has left you or something because you haven't done, because
yeah,
you're not around in your life, so
yeah.
like a medal's not going to keep you warm in bed at night, so to speak.
That's
But
right.
like Portugal.
You love that bike more than you love me.
Exactly, yeah. But Barcelona. So I went in 16. An amazing event. Really enjoyed it. Had a good bike. Had a good swim. Run. I suffered a bit on the run. Like I'm not a runner. Like I'm about 98 kilos. I'm 6'2". I'm not built for running, but got through it. And I remember I came down the finishing line, and it was. Yes, it was just it. I suppose you do kind of forget a little bit, and I suppose as I'm kind of going through the events, especially the full distances, I suppose it's only now that I'm probably properly appreciating what the finish line is. Um, because back then I think I was suffering so much. I think all I wanted to do was just get down this finishing line, and but I suppose Hamburg to me was one that I really enjoyed, and that was one I did last month. There was something about that finishing line; it was just special, and I suppose that's probably the one thing that I would say is to people is to enjoy the finishing line, because don't rush down it. Now don't take all day on it either, because it's not your personal finishing line. But it's just, I suppose, just to enjoy it, and just if there's a bell there, ring the bell. If your family are there, lean over the barriers, give them a kiss or a hug, etc. Because at the end of the day, I think they're the main people. Like I know in 2019 I did Cork, and my wife was down there, and like that was the year of the rain. Like she stood there for 15 hours in the rain. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And like these are the people that kind of like, it's at the end of the day we're out doing it, but standing around for 15 hours, I'm sure no more than your loved ones at events as well. But the red carpet in Barcelona, I suppose, was probably a bit of a blur. Now I do have a video of it, and I do have the video of being called out by the announcer that Ambrose Duggan, you are an Ironman. I suppose thankfully I had that, because apart from that it was a blur. It was the finishing line was a blur to me, and I suppose I'm probably just trying to maybe enjoy them a little bit more, because
Hmm.
I am aware that your finishing line, your finishing time, and I have only found out this recently, it actually hits you actually hit the final um tag before you hit the red carpet. I always thought it was when you actually came across the finishing line. So when you hit the final tag and your official time goes up, that's when the announcer has your name, and it's normally at the start of the finishing line.
Oh,
So
very good.
yeah, so that's something I didn't actually know. I always thought it was literally, the gantry. As soon as you get through the gantry, and you have to rush down the gantry. It's not. It's this normally the start of the red carpet. So, hopefully, touch wood, if I get down the red carpet in Leeds, because at the end of the day, there's no guarantees. Like there's a bit of luck to do an Ironman. Things can go. I had races where I DNF'd, went to Lanzarote, I DNF'd, Frankfurt, I DNF'd as well. So like you can have the best training in the world, but something can go wrong on race day. Through the best will in the world. But I suppose if I could go back to myself 10 years ago, and I probably should have paused a little bit on that finishing line, and I probably should have enjoyed it a little bit more. But look, hindsight is a great thing. I'm still fortunate 10 years later to be having the opportunity to line out at another Ironman, and hopefully be able to collect that finishing line again.
You've certainly now, I think, opened up a whole new chapter of people doing all sorts of crazy ass shit on the red carpet now that they know that their race finished. Just when they came onto the red carpet, you'll have people doing the fucking worm and moonwalking, and people somersaulting and backflipping and all sorts of stuff. I didn't know that. There you go.
No,
There's
and I did,
something new.
and I didn't know that. It was somebody has told me that. Now, it I could be wrong, but
That's
how,
class.
how but how else would the announcer have your name? Because the announcer has your name coming down the finishing line, so it's you hit the red
Of
carpet.
course,
So
of
yeah,
course.
so the only way to probably figure it out is to have somebody over there with you, and for them to. But as you said, the finishing line is a shared finishing line, so it's not like there was a. there was a guy in Hamburg, and it was funny because he was ahead of me, and I slowed down on the finishing line because he wanted to he rang the bell. But sure, I had to actually overtake him then because I don't know what he was doing on the finishing line, but he was spending too long, and I was like, well, look, I can't stand I can't stand there any longer, or my finishing line photos would be me just standing there. So I had to kind of overtake him, and I was still across the finishing line getting my medal, and he was still out in the finishing line. But anyway, look, that's his look because you're first. I think now there's a bigger thing about the races. Like I think the Ironman races in Europe are better raced. Personally, myself, I think the roads are fully closed. There's a better safety element in terms of the road closures on the bike, and in particular, I think the experience is a little bit better. Now that's not to say that in America where I've done them as well, they are very good and they are very good. But I just think that like you have some finishing lines, especially in Portugal, it's just they're magical places and they go on and they go on, and that's what it is because you'll have trucked and soldiered on that course for long enough. You want to have that finishing line, that red carpet experience.
Hmm. It really is a special thing, and it's
Mm,
just the music, the vibes,
mm,
the wee guy that comes out to meet you, the announcers, the like the finish line in Lanzarote. Even whenever I'm thinking about it now, compared to the finish line in Cork,
mm.
um, was a much more spectacular gantry. It was all electronic. It was like there was fire and flames on huge big LEDs and lights and double seating areas like left and right as you went down, tiered seats, and the music and the lights like a disco. It was just absolutely amazing. It's just a pity. It's a pity in some respects that you don't have the energy to actually enjoy it because you're
I
absolutely
know.
gassed.
I know, and I do always find like if you look at like that, it's always the last 500 meters. You zip up the tri suit, you fix your posture, you fix your race number. You wipe your face to make yourself look half decent because you know the finishing line photos are coming up. But like
Yeah.
if you backtrack 5 minutes before that, you're dragging yourself around the course and half your clothes are hanging off you, and you just look terrible.
Yeah, you look like you've been run over by a couple of bikes or something. Yeah, brilliant stuff. A few rapid fire questions here, Ambrose.
Sure.
I mean, if we were to go through all your races, bit by bit, this would be a three-parter,
Mm.
and then some. So we've touched on your first wheels, your first DNF, and then we've celebrated there with you as you cross the line in Barcelona. What about your toughest Ironman? Now that could be a 70.3 or a full, but just from your own experiences, what one did you find particularly tough, and for what reason?
I suppose I have to go back to Frankfurt. Like. I suppose there's different ways of tough. Like I did
Mm,
Bolton in 21. Like that was a tough race as well, but it was achievable and it was workable. I suppose Frankfurt in particular, when the year that I finished it over there, that was a particularly tough race. Like it was a 15-hour cutoff. It was a tight race. I was just below the 15 hours. It was the logistics of it, split transitions. You had to get transport out in the morning. It was just tough. The heat was tough, but an amazing finish line. Like you're coming up into the center of Frankfurt there, and the old buildings that weren't bombed during World War II, and it's a really really cool finishing line as well. And like the Germans obviously run an excellent race, but I suppose
mm,
that's probably one of the toughest ones because it was just so tight. It's the tightest Ironman I've ever done in terms of time wise,
mm-hmm,
because like normally they're 17 hours. Hamburg was 15 and a half. Like most races, like Leeds next week is 17 hours. Wales is 17 hours. Like Florida's one I've done twice. Like that's a softer course, so to speak. Again, a hard course, but it's not very challenging in terms of climbing on the bike. That was 17 hours. So I suppose Frankfurt does stick with me a lot because it was 15 hours, a tough bike, 1600 meters on the bike, tough run as well, and then it was a tough swim as well. So that's probably one that probably sticks with me a good bit.
and see, just mentally, when you're doing an Ironman that has that shorter time frame on it, does that play on you? Because I suspect, we kind of know the maths in our head. We've got our swim time sussed. We have our dream bike time, and we've roughness of what we want to get in the run. But we're always, I know I am, anyway, I'm always thinking, oh my God, have I got time? Is there enough time? And you're get caught up trying to do the maths in your head. with that 15 hours compared to the 17 hours, does that bring an extra pressure?
It do,
Maybe I'm spoofing, but
no, it does.
it seems to put me under pressure just thinking about it.
No, it does because I suppose when I was in Frankfurt in the last 20 minutes, I was there trying to add up the maths because normally when I do pause my watch. So I don't use my Garmin for the full event. I use the bike computer because I like the data I get from the bike computer as opposed, and I like the bike computers right in front of me as opposed to the watches on my arm. So I do always pause the watch for the bike portion. So the likes of Frankfurt there, I was there, and I like that mental maths trying to add this up and trying to figure out had I enough time. And I suppose I had kind of flashbacks of the bike when I was in Wales in 15. I wasn't too far away from T2, and I met someone on the bike course, one of the stewards, and I said to him, I said, how am I doing on time? And he said, oh, you've plenty of time. He says you have 15 minutes, and I knew I only had maybe 2 miles at that stage. So I suppose it did give me flashbacks back to that. Like, was I going to get down the finishing line? And next minute, I was 15:01, and where they'd still turn around and they'd give you your medal and say, "Oh, look, you did great," but you still didn't finish it, still didn't get an official finish time. So I suppose it does play on your mind, and it does. But I thankfully I've never been in that position since because like that. I've started training myself. I've used my coaching methodology that I have, and I've moved away from volume to more kind of tailored approach. Like after I do Leeds, I Barcelona, and that's going to be a more of a it's not about volume, it's quality versus quantity. And I know it sounds like something someone says in a pamphlet. It's training smarter, not harder, because it's not about going out and cycling, I don't know, 10 hours on the bike or something crazy like that. It's about quality sessions because at the end of the day, an Ironman is hard, and you're not training to such an extent that where you finish the Ironman and say, oh, I'll be fine. You should be wrecked. You should be tired. Your muscles
Hmm.
should be fatigued, and you should be walking funny for a week and struggling with stairs.
The visit to the lavatory afterwards is all going great till you try and stand up.
I know, I know.
So, what about your most enjoyable race? One that stands out for all the right reasons.
I suppose one that stands out, I suppose, probably is like I've done a lot of races. I've done a lot of races in some lovely places, and I've been very fortunate to like to be able to experience, to cycle my bike in a foreign country. And that's a big thing for me because I always love the day before the race or 2 days before. You land over there, you put your bike back together, and you go out for a bit of a recce cycle. There's no pressure, you may be cycling around the course venue, etc. And I suppose out of any of the venues I've gone to, I love Florida, to be able to cycle your bike over that part of the world, to me was something special. And I've done Ironman Florida twice, and I've done the 70.3 over there this year as well. Now there wasn't a swim this year at it because just because of weather conditions, but the bike and the run went ahead. But I think Florida stuck with me the most because it's a different world. Like Europe is obviously Europe. You know what I mean? Like there's this, no more than going on holidays to Spain, you have a fairly good idea. But I suppose when I went over there, I was really going into something different. Like everything was different over there. And I remember the first year I went over there, I got this mad thing of registration, and I'd never seen it before in my life. They actually got a gift card from Ironman, and I think it was like $100 on it that you could spend anywhere in Florida. It was only usable in Florida. And I was looking at this and I was saying, my God, I was like, this is just crazy that the Ironman are actually giving you giving you back something
Aye.
as opposed to the opposite way. But no, but like it was really unusual cycling over there, and I suppose that's probably from a full perspective. But I suppose from a half perspective, one that probably sticks out with me, like in particular, is probably Qashqai. Qashqai is an amazing location. Like an amazing swim. The bike is really cool. It's a can be a challenging bike, but it brings you down into a Formula One track. And that's a real novelty. Again, it's just a novelty. They changed it last year when they brought you down into track and they had the aid stations at the pits. Like that's just that's something cool. You have a good run. That's one that sticks out with me. So I suppose probably from that perspective, I suppose probably Portugal on the 70.3s. And but I do notice, like I do notice there's a change in Ironman, in terms of the experience they're giving back. to participants, and at the end of the day, we are participants. Like I'm never going to win an Ironman. I'm never going to win my age group. Ultimately, I'm getting a participation medal and a T-shirt. No more than if I was a 5-year-old, at some kids thing. But
Hmm.
like the event is. It's been enhanced, like your quality of your race back. Now the prices are going up too as well. But look, the prices of
Hmm.
everything are going up. But you're getting like the race experience is improving. Like the medals are getting better. They're bigger, they're better quality. Like I have some medals from Ironmans over the years, and they're tiny. And but like
Aye.
the one I got at Hamburg, it's a big lump of a medal, and you can see that in Lanzarote. Lanzarote have put a lot of money into their event. They knocked on the head the 70.3, and they put a lot of, and they've really invested in the race experience for people over there. And like
Hmm.
that's what it's about. It's about having the t-shirt, the bag, because like at the end of the day, that's advertisement for them, and like it's to have that experience just when you finish the event. But I definitely think there's a change out there from Ironman, and a business change ultimately, so. And I love the uniformity too as well, that if I go to America and I do an Ironman this year, I'm getting the same type of t-shirt that I'm getting from over in Portugal, and I like that. I like that uniformity too, because I've had like events Ironmans have gone to the year, and you get a t-shirt and you're like, gosh, what sort of crap t-shirt will this be, or what sort of bag will this be? So yeah, I think it's long-winded. It would be Florida for me, one of the best ones up there, and next would probably be Barcelona, and then on the 70.3, I probably just think it's Cascais, because I just think Cascais is a really special race. And I'm actually heading there this year. I'm doing a relay with myself and my wife, so I'm doing the swim, and she's doing the bike and the run.
So you've managed to persuade Mrs. Duggan to get involved in this thing. That's a quality move.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look. It's the best way to get people involved is get them into the sport. But
Uh-huh.
no, in fairness, my wife was always she was always active. She was always into her fitness, etc. But she loves cycling. She loves running. But obviously, and is an avid CrossFitter as well. But I suppose it's just probably the swimming. She's working on the swimming at the moment with a view ultimately to doing a 70.3 herself, and that's the plan over the next few years, and it's something that she will achieve. But like, yeah, look, it's if you can find a shared hobby with one of your loved ones, you know what I mean? Like that enhances, like that makes it, because a lot of people do an Ironman, and it impacts their life. It impacts, especially if they've young children, you have big days away and you're coming home, and you're trying to balance childcare. And that's why a lot of people just dip in and out of the sport. Maybe do one, tick that box, but maybe, like maybe have other life commitments that kind of, curtail their dreams of maybe doing a second one.
Fair play, and no better man to guide her through that than yourself, Ambrose.
Oh, well, I'm her coach as well, so it's yeah, it does be it. I do send her Program on every Sunday night, so it's sometimes I get a tumbleweed. I might even get a response from her.
Some enjoyable
Yeah, conversations.
debriefs. Yeah, absolutely. What about bucket list events, Ambrose? I know you may have already answered this throughout our conversation so far. Perhaps you have. Or is there an event that you have yet to do that you think someday I'm going to do that one?
Yeah, I suppose. Look, ultimately, I suppose what's the holy grail for Ironman? It's Kona.
Hmm.
So like, and that's the holy grail for anybody doing an Ironman. And I'd hope someday that I would have a pathway to Kona. And I suppose I like at the end of the day, eh, like rolling over so many Ironmans from year to year, it has an impact on your body. You know what I mean? Like it does have an impact on your body. Of course it does. And I suppose I have to be kind of pragmatic too as well, that like rolling over the amount of Ironmans, I'd like that this hopefully, well not hopefully, but it more than likely probably will be the last year where I'm doing the volume of full distance Ironmans that I'm doing. That I'll
Hmm.
probably, and I know I'll probably say I'll curtail it next year to two Ironmans, and someone's listening to this going, Jesus, this idiot is saying he's curtailing it to two Ironmans. That's still massive. And it is 100%. But like when you're looking at maybe, three or that in the one year, it impacts you. But I suppose Kona would be a bucket list for me, and hopefully someday I'll have the ability to get there. I suppose that's probably the end goal for me, but yeah, like Austria, I'm going to Austria next year. That looks an amazing race. That just looks like a really beautiful country. The race just looks lovely. The swim looks amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. And
Hmm.
Roth, and I know it's like I'm doing the dirt on Ironman here, but like Roth is definitely on the bucket list for me as well, because that's an amazing race. Like you're looking at the support over there, and I suppose Roth is definitely one that when I get to the end of my Ironman branded journey, that definitely I will be one that I'll be turning my attention to.
Absolutely. Just in terms of the Kona dream, I know what my plan is. My plan would be, if I was ever lucky enough to get to Kona through a qualification, I've got a bit of a wait to go yet because I know that I'm never going to win my age group category at this current
Never
age.
say never, never say never.
Well, I'm looking even at the guys in the club that are in the 50 to 55 age group category, and they're absolute beasts. So if you extrapolate that to the world, you're
I
you'll
know.
be humbled. But then whenever I look ahead to the 65 to 70 age group category, well, then maybe not so much competition around me. So that's what I'm playing, a long game. I'm playing
That's
it
same as
smart.
I'm hopefully
It's,
outlive some people maybe, and that will be
yeah,
yes, that will get it by default. That we'll be the only one in the age category.
that's the goal, because if we train for life and we keep this lifestyle going, and we're lucky enough and blessed to be able to compete and complete rather than compete
Hmm.
Ironman events, then that's our reward. Our reward will be that you're one of the few people at this age that are still able and capable of doing it, and therefore come to Hawaii. That's my kind of, it's kind of romantic notion.
No, but it is.
Um,
But and I think like you have to have a romanticized notion of certain things because like that's what your daydream is when you're on the bike or you're doing a long run or something like that. And like I think you touched upon it very, very well there, where you said it's a lifestyle choice. It's a lifestyle choice that we choose. Like I, for as long as I live, will like to complete and compete in Ironman events as long as my body is able to. I'm very fortunate to be fit and able to, and in a financial position to be able to do these races, but like that, I'm not stupid either. I don't spend money I don't have, because you can get caught up in the like the new bikes, etc. Like I have a few bicycles, but I upgrade them every few years, where I respray them. Like my TT bike is coming up on 9 years old now, but it's I have a custom spray job on it. I've upgraded all the parts over the years. It's as good. The only part that's original on it now is the frame. But like I go to races and I get people that are commenting on it. Even to
mhm.
such an extent that people are coming over to my bike like they did in Hamburg and robbing my food off my bike. Even to such an extent, so obviously there was something attracting them over to it, but I suppose it's and I think that you've touched upon it excellently there, Mickey. It's a lifestyle choice, and what a lifestyle choice to pick.
Mhm.
And I really think that I'm privileged and honored to have such a lifestyle choice, and as long as I'm alive, I'll be doing these, and I think it's just amazing to be able to line out in an event. And when I see people in older age categories line out an event, like I find them inspiring. Like there's a lady I'm helping over she's in America at the moment, and she's in the 60 age category, and like I find that inspiring, like because there is this perception in society that as you get older you should get slower and you should slow down, and as where like I want to live as long as I can, and
Mhm.
and I think it's a healthy lifestyle compared to maybe going to the pub on a Saturday night. Nothing wrong with that either. I like that as well, the odd time. But I think I'd rather be putting my money into a Revolut vault for a new bike than spend it in the pub.
Moving towards the last part of your sort of timeline that we were working on together, where we're at in the present. Obviously, you're looking forward to Ironman Leeds. But one of the things, and it was just leading up to this, you say that you're fully immersed in the Ironman lifestyle. And for you, that is represented by your training, your racing, and sharing your journey. You also said that you're still learning and you're evolving with every race. Is there always scope for learning and development? Do you find you've been around the block a few times? You're doing this a long time. You've competed in savage amount of races. You've 15 70.3 full. Like Ironman Leeds is going to be your 10th full distance. Is there more to come for you?
More to come. Well, I'd like to think that I'd like to think my Ironman journey at a certain point would probably evolve and probably change. Like it has changed. Like again, if I went back and I spoke to the athlete I was 10 years ago, it has changed an awful lot than the way I am now. But I think from every race I take, like I take learnings from Hamburg. I take learnings in terms of certain things that I'm going to improve on. I aim to improve on in Leeds. But I think you always take something from a particular race. And I think as long as that, no, maybe I'm not answering your question correctly now, so excuse me if I'm not, but I think I don't see ever a point where I will get and I will say I'm bored with Ironman
Uh,
because there's just another part of the world I'll go to. And like I haven't even looked at like there's South America, there's a lovely one in South Africa that I'd like to do someday, and that's before I even look at Australia. Australia, even though I have an awful fear of spiders, so that's what's keeping me away from that side of the world. But I suppose like everything is a learn. Like we learn, like we're constantly learning. We learn a new skill when we're in life all the time, every day. You know what I mean? And it's to be open to that, and it's to be open to like I use the page very much. Like I do believe there's a lot out there that everything needs to be behind a paywall, and like that's not the way that I operate. I like to give as much information to people as possible. And if people disagree with it, perfect. That's no problem at all. But like I like to it's all about helping people. And that's what I perceive it as, that I think there should be as again, going back to triathlon clubs, like I've been involved in two triathlon clubs over my years. Like I've been involved in one in my local town, and then I'm currently involved in one in my town, and Mullingar, the town where I work. So I suppose it's about taking the positives from that experience in each club, and like learning from it. So I definitely think there's something to be learned from every event, and we're all
I,
always learning, I think.
I don't think it's possible to ever reach a place if you're involved in triathlon, or possibly for any sport really, and you would maybe sit back and think, well, okay, I've kind of mastered that.
No,
It's
no, I
there,
don't think. Yeah,
it's
I think the good thing about an Ironman is you're always chasing a time, and whether that be like some people want to complete an Ironman, some people want to compete in an Ironman, and they are both valid reasons to do one. But you can all like I'm getting faster and stronger as I get older, and that's reflective in the time. Like I had my PB last year in Barcelona. And like
mm,
my Barcelona again this year is my main race. And like that's not to say I could go over there and something could happen. You could have a mechanical, you could have, 1,000 different things could happen. But I really want to go over and I really want to try and improve on that. And again, going back to the societal norms, you're getting older, you should slow down, you shouldn't, etc. Sport is for the young and all that. No, it's sport. That's the good thing I like about triathlon is that when you go to the younger age groups, it's actually less represented. Like the age group that I'm in at the moment, the
totally.
40 to 44, it's probably the worst age group to be in because you have every person who's finished Gaelic football and are hurling, and they want to have some sort of midlife crisis, and they want to move into triathlon. They go off and they buy themselves this 15 grand bike, and next minute they're out racing beside you, and they're excellent athletes. But it's the toughest one. But if you're in the 18 to 24 age category, the competition is different. You know what I mean? It's a different event,
Hmm.
but it's yeah, it's a life journey, and that's the journey that I think that I will be on, and I think if I would like to think that for the rest of my life, as long as I live, that I'll definitely be exercising and hopefully still doing triathlons.
I mean, that's exactly the way I feel about it, and I've spoken to quite a few people, particularly some of the older members of the our local club, Oma Triathlon Club, and they would always sort of talk about the lifestyle and about the training. And the thing about it is, we have, obviously there's three disciplines, so you never really become completely immersed in swimming or running or biking. You're always doing the three of them simultaneously. So you never really get burnt out only running. You'll see people who maybe take up cycling and they'll do it for 2 or 3 years and then they'll just get bored with it and then they'll drop it off and then they'll go back to their old ways. But I think with triathlon, you have the three things to be doing. For me, the swim actually becomes sort of a recovery thing. It keeps me agile, it keeps me
Mm.
mobile, it keeps me sort of moving. My biking offers me an opportunity to train without that impact from running, and then
Mm.
running gets the old heart rate going. So it's not a bad old
There is a
sport to
say,
get into, is it?
there is a saying, Mickey. I don't know if you ever heard it. Why, excuse my language now. Why be shit at one sport when you can be shit at three sports?
That's exactly it. That's
Yeah.
a brilliant one. I
But
love that one. Yeah.
but but it is about, like, at the end of the day, if you're running constantly, you can end up getting injuries, and that's one thing I think about triathlon that appeals to me. Like if you have a bit of a knock, say from running, you can switch to the bike, focus in on your bike training,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I think it is, from an injury prevention perspective, once you're adding your mobility and your flexibility into it and your strength work, I think is so important that you read it's from me now, I think it's a perfect package of a sport because you've three different disciplines. They're all working, like the bike and the run are obviously similar body groups, muscle groups, etc. But the swim is all the upper body, and you're getting that. It's not like you're constantly running, constantly cycling, or you're like if you're playing tennis or golf or something like that, that you're mixing it up and you have variety in what you're doing as
Hmm.
well. Because like swimming at the moment, I just cannot get a love for swimming at the moment, and it's very hard to, like, biking is my main thing.
Hmm.
Running, I don't do. I normally swimming, but just this year for some reason I just can't get a love for swimming. So for me, swimming is just a struggle this year. But I still have to get it done, because it's part of the plan. But I suppose in Leeds, I'm looking at it. It's a lake swim. I'm looking to make some improvements and gains on what I had in Hamburg. And yeah, conditions of Sunday are looking good now. So
Brilliant stuff. That brings me just perfectly on to Leeds. What is the game plan moving towards Leeds? We're this is like Tuesday. This is so your race is on this weekend, isn't that right?
yeah, so the game plan for Leeds is to finish it because it's
Hmm.
going to be a particularly challenging a race. Like it's too, like, no more, yourself from Lanzarote. It's similar elevation, but obviously Lanzarote has got wind that doesn't know what way to blow half the time. It'll blow one way and then it'll blow another way, and you're trying to figure out what way the wind is blowing. But Leeds is going to be a challenging course because, like, it's not going to be road. The road quality is going to be similar to Ireland, and road quality in Ireland in certain areas is poor. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's call a spade a spade. You know yourself from Ironman Cork. Like, it's like I do a lot of work on the greenway here because it's so safe as well. You can work on your TT position. I know people say, "Oh, it's so boring. Why are you on the greenway so much?" I'm on the greenway because I don't want to be killed by some stupid road user who's not
yeah,
watching what he's doing, or he's on the phone, or they're on the phone. But I suppose the plan for Leeds ultimately is finish it. Like, I want to get. I don't like uneven numbers. I have a bit of OCD about that, so don't like number 9. Want to get to number 10. But I
hmm,
suppose to me, it's just to finish it, and whatever time Leeds give me will be the time I'll take. And touch wood, hopefully I do finish it because there's no guarantee you'll ever finish a full Ironman. And there's no guarantee you'll ever finish it because a lot of things can happen. You need a bit of luck,
that's
on
right.
your, and I always, when I do beyond the bike and you'd see someone maybe fixing a puncture or something, and it's just there, like, there go by the grace of God, go I, you know what I mean? That could be
Hmm.
me 2 seconds around the corner, you know what I mean? Because you could hit a bit at last, you could hit, but I do think the road quality over there, it's going to be challenging. And then you're going into the run. The run has 480 elevation on it. It's going to be a struggle fest, and that's what it is. So I'm just going over for the experience, and again, whatever comes of it. And again, I suppose I never want to come across as cocky or anything like that because it's an Ironman, and I've been humbled at Ironman. I know that you can go to an Ironman, and some people say, "Oh, well, I want this time or I want that time." I want to finish it, and whatever time I get is a bonus after that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the right approach for me. And it takes the pressure off, and it means that you're
Mm.
not leaving. You're not coming home thinking or feeling disappointed because you didn't get the time. And I've often said this. If you were to do the same Ironman course 3 years in a row, you would have three different experiences because it would be a different event each time. It could be the same course, but temperatures, wind, rain, humidity, all these things, and whether your own hydration, your own sleep, your own stresses, all these things. And I think that's why it's such an appealing sport because it's just so unpredictable, and it's. I mean, it's not like playing snooker where you're on the same table with angles. It's a very very different sport. So many variables come into play. So
Well, I remember I was in Portugal, maybe 3 years ago, and I was coming up out of the Formula One track, and it got quite tight, and I was on the right, obviously, because of the opposite side of the road and people, and I came up, and this guy overtook me And as he was overtaking me, somebody else decided to overtake him. And I remember the two of them clipped, and the two of them came down, and it was only I got on the hood straight away, and I got to brake. I would have been down with them as well. And
Hmm.
thankfully they were okay. But I just remember as your man was hitting the ground, he was just roaring abuse at the other man. And like, for what, for a few seconds, at the end of the day, like, some people race these events, and that's like, I was in Hamburg there, and the world champion Laura Phillips, I think, hopefully I have her name right, she overtook me on the bike, and like, it was just amazing. Like, it was just
Mm,
like, overtook me. I was doing 30k an hour, she overtook me like I was standing still, but like, that's why they're competitively. I'm not competitively competing. I'm competing for myself, and I'm
yeah,
competing for a target for me. And it's, but like, if I'm going down a hill, like, some of those hills in Lanzarote, I'll be on the brakes. Some other lads will be flying down, and they'll be doing this and doing that. At the end of the day, like, for a few extra seconds, it's not worth it. It's not worth your nice bike. It's not worth yourself. You know yourself. If you fall off a bike, a small little injury can turn into a big injury. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
can impact your life as well. So, but it definitely, there is. I suppose, to summarize, I suppose it's to compete, and I'm going over to Leeds to compete. And whatever time I get, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to finish it, I'll be delighted.
I'm sure you'll finish that. Ambrose,
Hopefully, hopefully.
um, we're all rooting for you. We're all behind you.
Thanks a million, Mickey. Appreciate that.
It's great to have that chat with you, Ambrose, and thank you for being so honest and candid about your journeys, the ups and downs and roundabouts that you've gone through, and long may it continue. Just in terms of if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, Ambrose, with regards to having any questions or just general chit chat or even some coaching, how would they go about getting in touch?
Yeah, please look. As I said, I'm all for giving people open, honest advice, and sometimes I can be a little bit too blunt. But I think it's important that, like, if somebody has, like, I've spoken to some people, like, I get a lot of questions on the page, a lot of interactions, and it's brilliant, and I'm delighted, to give. But if somebody says to me, "Well, I've never done an Ironman before," because I think the unique selling point that I have is I've made every mistake out there over the years, like that, going from a sprint to an Ironman. I'd always say, do it in a stage process now. Build up your fitness, build up your confidence. Go to an Olympic, go to a 70.3, then consider, your full distance. Don't be going to somewhere like Lanzarote or Wales as your first race. So it's just like, reach out. Like, I do believe not everything needs to be behind a paywall, and non advice should be free, and like that. I've no ulterior motive. I'm not plugging a product. I'm not anything like that. So if anyone wants to reach out, have a chat. I would talk all day about triathlon, and in particular Ironman. So there'll never be, and any questions I get, especially if it's from a non-follower on the page, it goes to a specific folder, and I always review that folder, and I always get back to people, because I love chatting to people, and I love supporting people, and I love hearing journeys that people are on, and like that, if there's any way that I can help them along that way. I think it's a privilege to be on a journey as a coach with any particular athlete, and like that. It's if you're fortunate that an athlete places their trust in you to help them achieve a target, then I think it's a very special place to be.
That's brilliant, Ambrose. Um, just make sure that you keep up with your top tips. I love the wee posts and the wee reels that you put up. You might do a wee feature like 10 things you didn't know about Ironman, or 10 things you need to
Mm.
know about Iron, or 10 things I love all those things. And there's a real sense that when you're reading through them, and many of us will now be able to read it because in our heads we now know your accent, so we'll all be reading it in your Westmeath
I
accent.
Yeah.
But there's a sense that you've penned that yourself based on your experiences. And one of the things that I love about what you just said there was your 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 selling point is that you have made all the mistakes, and it's in making the mistakes and having those knockbacks that gives us the lessons and learning to take us forward and to make ourselves much better people.
Yeah, like it's about, and I suppose that's probably one of the points, that if I can help somebody by just giving them a bit of advice, it's not about coaching or anything like that, but just giving them a little bit of advice, that they don't make a mistake that I've made, because I have made all the mistakes. You know, like, like when I did finish Wales in 21, 22. I remember I came out of the water, and I remember I got to my bike, and I remember the front tire felt a bit soft. So I unscrewed the dust cap, and next minute the valve flew off into my hand. Of course, I went into an absolute panic. I was like, Jesus, third time over here. I'm definitely not finishing this. Can't even get out of the bike course on this one. So I went over to the bike mechanic, and I remember the bike mechanic was just like I didn't know that the level of ignorance that I had towards bike mechanics at the time. Like I didn't even know you could screw out the cores on them. And
Hmm.
like the bike mechanic was just like, will you relax? Here's the pliers, there's the pump, off you go. And I just put it back in, screwed it and on and pumped it back up, and off I went. So I suppose like that's like I've a massive amount of knowledge from making mistakes, but I also have a massive amount of knowledge from the stuff that I've done right and the stuff that works for me, and in terms of the bike mechanics and stuff like that, and I suppose I try and use the page like in terms of those posts, like some of those posts. There's one I put up recently about the 70.3 versus the full distance Ironmans.
Yeah, yeah,
Like when I go into the metrics on that, like nearly I think it's nearly 3,000 people have saved that post. So that's 3,000 people that have looked at that and wanted to take the information from that, and it has, I don't know, I think maybe 7 or 8,000 likes. But like that is like that to me says, like, if I was ever sitting there and saying, oh God, why am I doing the page? Is it a waste of time? Is anyone any interest? I look at the likes of the business metrics behind, because I run it as a business account, and you get all the data, the optics of it. And when I look at that and I see, God, 3,000 people have saved this post, I'm obviously giving information out that people want,
yeah.
and again, it's heavily caveated that it's from my perspective. And like somebody else, I've had people that have messaged me and said, oh, you're wrong about this and you're wrong about that. And I'd say 100%. I says, from your perspective, I says, you might disagree with me, and I respect your opinion, but from my perspective, this is the perspective I'm coming from. Like I'm not coming from a world champion perspective. I'm not coming off the bike and running a 3 minute or 3:15 kilometer per for marathon or anything like that.
Hmm.
But I'm coming from like the age groupers make up the Ironman.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, like the pros are amazing, and what they do is just phenomenal. But at the end of the day, without the age groupers, there'd be no Ironman. And the racing element to it is obviously for that side of it. But without the 3,000 age groupers, there wouldn't be a pro series. And I suppose it's to appeal to that mass, and it's just to give information, and it's just to help people. Like that, one of the best bits of advice I ever give is like, when you go down to transition, the morning before the road, bring toilet paper with you. Because if you go into those portaloos, they're always lacking toilet paper. And just so, and I said that to somebody before, and they were looking at me, and then they were like, that was the best bit of advice, or to bring a headlamp with you down to racking your, when you're down racking your bike, because you can't see anything, like
Aye.
just there's
Yeah.
just there's simple, it's not all about your VO2 max, your VO2 max and your lactate threshold. Like these things are important as well. But at the end of the day, it's the practical element, and it's what the race involves, and especially that one about the 70.3 versus the full distance. It's not like putting two halves together and gluing them
No,
together.
no.
It's a totally different event, and anybody who approaches it with that mentality will normally have a horrible day, because it's a totally, like, your fueling is different, your everything is different. You can go out and you can wing a half distance Ironman if you have it, if you're fairly fit. You can go out and you can wing it, you can suffer it, but you can't go out and wing a full distance, because you'll just end up hitting the wall.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Ambrose, you keep doing what you're doing. Keep
It will
you
be.
posting.
Appreciate it.
Keep inspiring us. Keep entertaining us.
Thanks, Mick.
Um, keep a smile on our face, but more importantly, have a smile on your own face whenever you cross that line in Leeds. And we all look forward to following your journey, and long may it last.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Ambrose, and the best of luck.
Brilliant, Mickey, and thanks very much for having me on today. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.